Right, fitting t-shirt, considering what's happening in the news today.
I went something completely different, to be fair. Here we go.
Are you taller than me? Oh, is that it?
No, it's because you're kneeling down.
I'm further away.
It'll be a case of, we need to talk about Sherwood Forest. We need to talk about Sword of Sherwood, but we're probably going to talk about loads of Robin Hood in general.
It's not an easy title to say, is it? Sword of Sherwood Forest.
Yeah, Sword of Sherwood.
Sword of Sherwood.
My God, when did I turn it to Sean Connery? But there's also a couple of really nice non-horror gems in its early days from there as well. One to really mention, I'll start with the middle one first, to be honest with you. We've got three listed here. I'm going to start with the middle one, which is their adaptation of The Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yes, the Sherlock Holmes.
The Sherlock Holmes, sorry.
Although that was still very much, that had some horror elements to it as well.
It did. I mean, it's not strictly speaking... It's not strictly speaking a faithful adaptation, because there's a lot of things that have been reworked and there's been added to. There's kind of, you know, there's a huge sort of flashback sequence that's very horror inflicted. It looks like a Hammer horror film, but it is Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
And you know, when you've got, you know, Hammer stalwarts, Peter Cushing and Andre Morel playing Holmes and Watson, and this is the first time where you see, sort of, because prior to that, you know, you had Nigel Bruce as Watson. He was always the bumbling fool type of thing. This is where you see sort of Watson as kind of like not that, you know, actually quite competent,
yeah.
And
not the bumbling sidekick, but someone who's actually
exactly
a worthy character on his own right.
But you know, as I said, as a film on its own, ignore the kind of like the reworkings and what have you. The Hound Baskervilles is actually really good. The Hammer version is really good. There's another film in there called The Snorkel, which is a very interesting little thriller, whereby a young teenage girl thinks that, I think it's her stepfather or step uncle or something like that, has actually bumped off her aunt. And the Snorkel, the way he's done it is he's turned the gas on in a room, knocked her out, left her in there to asphyxiate, and he's hidden under the floorboards with Aqualung and a face mask. So hence the Snorkel of the title. Sorry for spoilers, I do apologise for that. But
it's all right, the film came out in
1956 or something
so
like that.
If you've not watched it yet, then
you've only got yourself to blame. You've only got yourself to blame. Do not worry about it. It's a sled, he's a ghost, and she's actually a he. There you go. It's actually really good. It ends because nobody believes the girl, and you know he tries. You know this uncle tries to then bump her off, but then she awakens and leaves him under the floorboards. And then there was two versions.
Fitting punishment.
A very fitting punishment. There was kind of like two versions of the film sort of filmed at the time, which was interesting. One where she accepts that she was imagining it, and then we can imagine that this guy sort of ended up under the floorboards for the rest of all time. And then there's another one where she's like, no, he's under here now, and he goes and gets arrested. There's another one which is a little bit, it's one of the most controversial Hammer films, called Never Take Sweets from a Stranger.
Sounds like a public information film.
Yes, and it's exactly what you think it might be about.
Oh dear.
Very controversial at the time. Looking at it now, you kind of imagine, my God, how did they get away with this? But it is one of those films that, you know, when you do watch it, it's incredibly, it's really well done, but it's incredibly uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable viewing.
The subject matter, which you could probably guess from the title. So yes, I have to admit, Luke, I honestly didn't know that Hammer even made Robin Hood movies until you told me about this. I naturally thought that they just did horror movies. You know, when you think of Hammer Studios, straight away you think of Hammer Horror. So when you said that you wanted to review a Robin Hood film that came from Hammer Studios, I was imagining all kinds of scenarios where the famous outlaw got to tangle with some of the classic horror monsters. You know, Dracula comes to Sherwood Forest, or you know, Robin Hood goes to Transylvania. And you know, in my headcanon, I'd still like to see a film like that happen.
It would still work.
It would have been quite a different take on the legend.
And a number of actors that appeared in various episodes of the series would later become better known, including the likes of Nicholas Parsons, Paul Eddington, the various members of the Carry On cast, such as Sid James, John Sims, Bernard Bresslaw, Leslie Phillips, even Steptoe and Son themselves, Harry H. Corbett and Wilfred Bramble would appear.
Man.
Also, Q himself from the Bond films, Desmond Llewellyn, would also turn up in an episode, and he actually also appears in this film as well, playing a completely different character. But we'll come to that one in a moment.
But I still would like to see the Robin Hood legend being taken to unusual places, i.e. like fighting off Dracula and Frankenstein. You know, Robin Hood but with a twist perhaps. Robin Hood in space, or rather, space.
Space!
You know, a 55-year-old Tim Curry is Robin Hood with a Russian accent for some reason. Robin Hood in China, Robin Hood in Depression-era America, Robin Hood during World War II, something a little bit different. Maybe the ancestor of Robin Hood in different time periods. Just a thought there. Something a little bit different with the tale, because when those other Robin Hood films came out in 2010 and 2018, they weren't necessarily doing anything new.
No, they were just sort of rehashing it. Now we mentioned about sort of Peter Cushing not making it to the end of the film, and how it's a bit jarring, to be honest with you. One of the extras on the Blu-ray goes through kind of the notes of the minutes and what have you about sort of making the film and sort of all the various bits and pieces. It mentions that Christopher Lee was being spoken to about being in this.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. Now, it doesn't mention for what part.
Right, okay.
But considering...
See, him as Newark, that might have been good.
And now you...
No disrespect to
Richard Pascoe, who's a wonderful film. He's really, really good in The Gorgon. But obviously Nigel Green was locked in for Robin Hood. Peter Cushing was locked in for the Sheriff of Nottingham. If Christopher Lee was going to be in this, he would have been the Earl of Newark. Because then that kind of like makes perfect sense, right? You've got, you know, Peter Cushing, Sheriff of Nottingham dies, but then you've got the big bad, and the big bad being Christopher Lee. However, it didn't happen. Richard Pascoe was cast in the part because I think Christopher Lee was off making another film in the south of France. And to be fair, who can blame him?
Nice work if you can get it.
Absolutely nice work when you can get it.
So, Chris, you can either go and work in Ireland for a few weeks, or you can go work in the south of France.
It's not really. It's not really. No offense to sort of Ireland, because because it does look a lovely. When they were filming it, it looks the sun was shining and everything. It looks absolutely superb.
They did a lot of filming for Excalibur in Ireland.
Game of Thrones was basically all shot in Ireland, specifically
on
Northern
days
Ireland.
where it wasn't pissing it down with rain, obviously.
Well, yes. But there we have another thing as well. A Sherwood Forest in Nottingham where it's beautifully sunny all the time.
Yeah, that's not accurate, is it?
No, it's not. It's not accurate. In actual fact, that's probably one of the things that, so we mentioned about Robin of Sherwood, the hooded man. That's probably one of the really, really good things, because it does show mud. It does show rain. It is a rather down and dirty TV series when you think about it. But in this,
although bizarrely throughout all that, Robin's hair still looks. Say that again.
Sorry.
Although amazingly, despite all the rain and the mud, Robin's hair still looks amazing in that show.
It's all flowing and everything. Yeah, it's really, really bizarre. But again, in Sword of Sherwood, it's beautiful sunshine all the time. It's just, really?
Have these people never been to Nottingham?
It's not like that at all.
It's given us another excuse to talk about Peter Cushing as well.
Always one thing to talk about.
Who still gets credits now on IMDb because of his, post passing away credits on the likes of Rogue One, on the Bad Batch. Even though it's been several years since Peter Cushing, departed, he still gets credits on IMDb now.
Because it's him, and the wonderful thing from the point of the Star Wars side of things, yes, his character has turned up on Rogue One and Rebels, Star Wars Rebels and Star Wars The Bad Batch and what have you. The likeness is still him.
Yeah, he did.
The likeness is still him.
He did thoroughly enjoy working on Star Wars. He enjoyed being part of that. He enjoyed playing that character. And it is, it's a shame that my character got killed off here. I'd have liked
please
to
bear
have
in
been
mind,
some of
he
the
was
other
only
Star Wars
ever
films.
please bear in mind, he was only ever in one of them.
Yeah.
He was only ever in the first
He
one.
was only in A New Hope.
He was only ever in A New
But
Hope.
because it's Peter Cushing, his character's become like, Grand Moff Tarkin's become like one of the most memorable characters in all of Star Wars, to the point where they use CGI to basically bring him back to life in Rogue One and the Bad Batch.
Oh, did they?
If you believe what happened in Doctor Who, in the Doctor Who novel.
Did they?
Yeah.
Of course it is. It's silly. It's silly.
If we were to have we need to talk about Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
That Hall of Fame would include the likes of Sean Connery. It would include John Boardman.
Yeah.
It would include John Pertwee.
Yeah.
And it would absolutely include Peter Cushing.
Absolutely.
Because of the contributions he made to cinema, because of the characters he played.
Yeah.
And to that we say, Peter Cushing, we salute you, sir. So I felt it was time that, in order to sort of make it up to Luke, it was time for him to... Sorry, I'll say that again.
Yeah.
Robin Hood is a legendary outlaw. Sorry, missed a word out there. Good start. You want to just change your seat, because it's a bit creaky.
Yeah, it's a bit creaky, isn't it?
You want to see? Here, try this one. Because I'm just worried it might get picked up on the audio. Oh, fucking hell. Oh, there we are.
Musical chairs. Musical chairs. Musical chairs.
There's one, there's one for the outtakes.
Yeah. Oh, that's better.
Right. Hopefully it won't pick up too much of the creaking.
Yeah.
Because they are quite good, these microphones.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but when we were doing, the Apple's probably got the best audio out of any episode we've done.
Oh yeah, it's really good
So far.
There we go. That's it.
And that was with having Josh.
Yeah, that was having
sandwich
Josh
in
behind
between
us as well, yeah.
Anyway, sorry, a little peek behind the curtain there.
Yeah. Green actually appeared on the Adventures of Robin Hood television programme, although rather than playing Little John, he instead played a different character that only turned up in one episode. No, sorry, I pluralised that. Although rather than playing Little John, he instead played a different character that only turned up in one episode.
Of course, the best way of what's up with me today?
I have no idea. The person doesn't even have a name. That's why I would just call him Desmond.
Poor Desmond.
Poor Desmond. We then get introduced to Niall McGuinness as Friar Tuck, who, in this very first scene with Robin, gets shot right in the onions. Ooh. Tuck has a key role to...
Sorry.
Please, I'm trying to maintain a bit of professionalism here, for Christ's sake.
Go on.
Tuck.
Sorry. Cut that bit.
That's for the outtakes.
So, it's now time to reflect on what have we watched here? Oh, sorry.
Well, no.
Together. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
What have we watched?
Fucking hell. Right.
1, 2, 3. What have we watched here? So. That's the first time that I've actually done that in years, actually said, what have we watched here together? Anywho.